Hello and welcome back to part 2 of this training session on intercultural business communication. Drusilla ended part 1 by observing how the metaphor of the iceberg is presented in Dr. Peter Sand's definition. And I want to add that while it is beneficial to study and familiarize yourself with the things about a culture that can be perceived by the 5 senses, such as its popular music or literature, these things are transient and are subject to change within a given generation, while things such as values, beliefs and convictions are more stable and may take several generations to change, if they change at all. This ability to uncover and understand a culture's values and beliefs is also transferable across cultures, and will assist you in adapting to any cultural group because values and beliefs are a part of every culture. Whereas knowledge about those things that are perceived with the senses tend to be culture-specific and cannot be transferred across cultures. Drusilla, do you have the handout?
I have it right here. The handout Roger is referring to is the table with the headings Big C Culture, Classic or Grand Themes, and Little C Culture, minor or common themes. I wanted to review the table because it gives examples of ways to think about the invisible and visible aspects of culture. The Big C represents the grand or classic themes of a culture, and the Little C represents the minor or common themes. I think you'll find it helpful to study a combination of both. For example, with regards to grand invisible themes or Big C, you might choose to study the core values of a culture or its societal norms. With regard to visible minor themes or Little C, you might want to study a culture's style of clothing, artwork or gestures. The table is not meant to be complicated or a hard and fast rule on how to study culture. It just offers a way to begin to think about culture. Whatever strategy you may choose, the point is to try to strike a balance between the invisible and visible aspects of the two. Well, that completes our discussion of the meaning of culture. Next, we are going to give you brief definitions of the word stereotypes and generalizations.
Okay, let's look first at the word stereotypes, which we are defining as negative statements regarding a group of people. These statements usually derive from an inaccurate or situational perception being applied to an entire group. The goal of stereotypes in general is to control and marginalize others, not to bridge a gap and make for better understanding among cultures. All have to access our stereotypes in order to challenge them and make mental adjustments if we wish to break out of them and create an environment where positive intercultural business communication can take place.
Roger, would a statement like African Americans are not interested in education be an example of a stereotype?
Yes, it would, Drusilla, because the statement takes a perception and applies it to an entire group of people. What definition do you have for generalizations?
Generalizations are conclusions drawn from research and after observing and interacting with a large number of people from a particular cultural group over a period of time. The most important facts to remember about generalizations is that they are formed over time, and they are more reliable than stereotypes, and they can prove helpful when you are seeking to understand how another culture operates. An example of an accurate generalization would be that many African Americans value education. Generalizations are not meant to be hard and fast, rules only guideposts of information that have been proven accurate by research and experience.
Great definition, Drusilla. I can see how using generalizations versus stereotypes would be much more effective in working with people from other cultures. We are going to transition at this point to the value of knowing your personal cultural style. Our goal here is to help you see how the information you've just learned can be applied to a personal self-assessment of your cultural style.
I wanted to begin by reading this quote from the anthropologist Edward Hall, who described culture as an unseen but powerful force that holds everyone captive. In his words, Culture is not an exotic notion studied by a select group of anthropologists in the South Seas. It is a mold into which we are all cast, and it controls our lives in many unsuspecting ways. The problem, he said, is that culture hides much more than it reveals, and that it hides most effectively from its own participants. I find it very interesting that Hall said culture is most elusive to the people who are affected by it. This is the very reason why it is necessary to take a look at how your culture has shaped and molded you into the person you are. In other words, once you have accessed the effect your culture has had on you, you will be better able to understand how your cultural views may come into play when you are involved in a business situation where you interact with people from other cultures.
Both scholars and practitioners agree that in order to succeed in the area of intercultural business communication, we must first know our own cultural style.
That's right, Roger. And many researchers agree that this has been a neglected area of training in intercultural business communication, even though it is one of the keys to success.
We are going to take up the last part of this training session in Part 3, where we will review the worksheet entitled Cultural Self-Assessment and the worksheet entitled Traits for Success. Please join us in Part 3.